I am the big tank.
On the battlefield of life, nothing's harder than a tank. Yeah, have you ever met a man, hearts full of love, bigger than a tank?
Big tank.
He served in a few wars, he's a veteran that stands for a cause. For the best interviews and news, just keep it glued to the
Tank. I
tank.
am the tank. Big
Big
tank.
tank talk.
Tank.
Big tank talk.
Hey, friends, and welcome to another segment of Big Tank Talk. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to a singer that I've met recently named Jeremy Wayne McKern. I made a mistake in a previous interview of setting the genre, and this time I'm not going to do that. Jeremy, welcome to Big Tank Talk, brother.
Hey, thank you. Thanks so much, Tank. Appreciate it.
Um, First thing, since I didn't mention it, what do you do? Primarily country, or do you cover different genres of music?
You know, I don't really like to. I'm kind of like you. I don't like to try to box myself into any particular classification. But as far as what I've gotten for feedback from other folks about what we sound like, it's more of it's kind of an eclectic mix of like a little bit of outlaw, a little bit of red dirt, Americana. We definitely have a blues and rock vibe to our music, not just traditional country, you know. But we've got kind of I think it's a new school sound, but with kind of that old country vibe. We're using mostly all stringed instruments on our new album. It's all, everything on the new album is stringed instruments. There is no drums or anything like that, but we kind of fill it out with the percussion on the instruments to fill in that element. But yeah, that's, you know, we're not doing any of this mainstream bro pop country stuff that's out there. You know, more power to the folks that like that. That's not our style.
All I'll say is I wouldn't classify it in any other ways except good music.
Oh, thank you.
Now, in getting to know a little bit about you before the interview, I know you were prior military. Can you tell us what branch and maybe a little bit about what you did?
Yeah, so in my family, there's kind of a long line of military service history. One of my uncles was Army, another uncle was Navy. They both served in Vietnam. One in the jungle, one on a boat. My dad was Navy in Vietnam. He was on fast attack submarines. And then so when I turned 22, this was after I got out of high school, and I tried to just kind of do my own thing for a while, work some construction jobs. But 22, I figured my life really wasn't going anywhere, so I decided to join the Navy. And I joined the Navy back in 1999, and it was a great decision for me. I actually just retired back in 2021 with 21 years as a senior chief. Retired now, obviously. Yeah, my Navy service was did 3 deployments. 2 of those deployments were counter drug ops deployments to the Caribbean and South Pacific, where we were busting boats running large quantities of cocaine into the U.S. And then the other big deployment that I went on was a 9.5-month deployment to the Gulf in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. And it was originally scheduled for 6 months, but the battle group that was supposed to come and relieve us was didn't qualify, so we got stuck out there for a bit longer. And I was out there in the Gulf when it all went down, as far as taking down the oil platforms and going in and kind of liberating Iraq. So it was fun times.
Well, Jeremy, on behalf of myself, my family, and our audience, thank you for your service.
Absolutely, and thank you for yours, sir.
I appreciate that. And of course, I'm partial to Navy. Like you, there's a family tradition of military service in my family. My dad was Navy. 2 of my uncles were Navy, and 3 of them were Army. So we've got a lot of good, proud military service in our background.
Yeah.
We could do a whole show on just the military, but that's not what this is about.
No, I
So
was gonna say I've got every branch of my family. I got Marines, Army, Navy, and Air Force. The only one I don't think we have is Coast Guard, but they're not part of the military, so we're fine there.
just so people understand, when you're in the military community, regardless of the branch, we pick at the others.
Yes.
So don't take what he said too seriously.
Yeah.
Um,
No hate comments, please.
just jump into it then. What got you into music?
Music's always been a passion for me, and just going way, way, way back as far as how I kind of latched on to country music. My parents played a ton of the old, really all the highwaymen. So you got Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, you got Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson. Um, anyway, yeah. So my very first concert at 4 years old was Willie Nelson concert. That was so. I guess you could say we started early, and then one of my biggest influences is Johnny Cash. I'm even wearing his shirt for this interview, but yeah, I love all the old school country sounds, and what really got me into it later in life now is, growing up, I'm in the kind of a family where it was a little bit on the strict side, and my parents wanted what's best for me, so they pushed me towards academics, and in particular more of the engineering type stuff because I was always good in math. So I figure I did the first 40 years for my folks because I went to school, I got my degree, been in electrical engineering, did that with the Navy, and then the last since 2008 when I left active and went over into some reserve duty, I've been working in as an electrical engineer, but working in oil and gas, and now also some railroad, and now mining. So now I work in mining primarily as a business development manager, kind of helping mines to figure out how to make sure that they don't die from hazardous gases underground. And so long story to get back to the original question, which was how I got into the music, is now during COVID, I had the opportunity to pick up a guitar, which I hadn't done in over 20 years, and basically learn guitar from scratch because I'd only ever learned like 2 or 3 chords originally. And COVID gave me a lot of extra time at home. There was only one bar in town that was open where where I'd actually be able to get out, and they had karaoke still even during COVID. So one of my friends convinced me to try out karaoke, and I'd been playing guitar. And I know that my first karaoke performance was pretty horrible, and I'm sure it didn't get much better for a while. But I got hooked. I got hooked on singing, performing in front of people. And I decided like karaoke is not going to be a thing that it's good for fun, but like I wanted something more. So that's when I decided to start writing my own songs and really working on the guitar hard, because I don't know if as a newer artist, you got to understand that getting to the point where you can play guitar while singing is definitely a skill all to its own. It's a tough one to break through, but worked through that, started a band, and this last April we played our first live show with the full band. Leading up to that, I'd played some open mics and played a few solo acoustic gigs. But yeah, the rest is kind of history, getting to this point. And I don't know if I answered your question completely, but music's always been a passion, just not something I ever thought I would be good at or could do. And now I'm doing this completely for myself and nothing to do with what my parents want,
Yeah, and the one thing that you mentioned, I can understand. You talked about how difficult it is to play guitar and sing. I have a good friend, Matt Gardner, who is a musician, a singer, and songwriter, and that's something he told me, that it's really a lot harder than people think it is to play guitar and sing at the same time. So my hat's off to you for learning that skill, because it's not an easy one.
Well, I mean, we have to if we're going to do this kind of a thing. But yeah, it's it's one of those milestones. It's a kind of a big one when you're brand new doing it. It's like, oh, I can finally do this together, because you have to. You got to if you're going to perform, or unless you're going to have everybody else play the instruments and just be a singer, and that's really not my. It's not my style. I feel like it's kind of my hat's off to anybody who wants to get up and perform, but I almost feel like it's if you're going to be like in the spotlight, you're going to be out there performing a lot,
Right.
almost like cheating. Maybe not, but I feel like it's good to have a musical instrument and some music theory
Right.
behind you when you're writing.
So let me ask you, you're a songwriter as well. What's your creative process?
Gosh, I'm not sure how to put my creative process out in the world, but here's kind of how I write songs. I constantly keep a notepad open on my phone, and whenever I hear something that sounds like a good song hook or a lyrical idea, I write it down in my notebook so that I don't forget those. And sometimes that'll drive me crazy, because I'll be laying in bed and can't sleep, and then the idea will pop up in my head, and I have to literally stop, turn on the light, grab my phone, and put it into my phone so that I don't forget it. Because there's nothing more frustrating than knowing that you had a good idea and then waking up and going, "What was that idea? I can't remember it." So usually I just take that and flush it out. And what I mean flush it out is like just kind of take an idea like that and kind of expand on it. And early on, when I started writing songs, I was more like writing kind of like free form poetry and then adding music to it. And now my process, sometimes I still do that, but my process has changed a little bit to where now that I've got more of the music theory under my belt, I like to actually sit down with my guitar and either strum or pick out patterns that I like and just kind of play around, because I understand that the music side of it, until I come up with something that I think sounds good or it's the vibe that I'm going for, and then I'll write lyrics to that. So there's really two schools of thought there that I use. I'll either write the lyrics first and then add the music, which works really well a lot of times, and then there's the other side. So sometimes the songs come out in 45 minutes, and sometimes the songs take weeks or months to finish, depending on if I get stuck and just need to like put that song on the back burner for a while and let it marinate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So you kind of gave a good answer to what got you into music. What inspires you to continue in music now? Or who?
Well, I get a lot of inspiration from watching the current. I almost want to call it like a revolution within the. I'll call it roots music. I'll call it a roots music movement. There seems to be a music movement going on back towards a lot more authentic, traditional, old school sounds, and away from all these cookie cutter type stories that they put in a lot of the mainstream country, Nashville type songs. And I don't think it's just country, but there's a movement back towards what I call real country music, which is music that's not about trucks and girls and stuff like that, but stuff that it's about more real stuff, the stuff that tugs at your heartstrings, the songs that make you cry or make you laugh or make you really mad and angry, that make you want to go out and, act out. Like there's just so much more feeling in those songs. And that's, yeah.
Absolutely. I understand that. So now that you are a performer, if you could open for anyone in the industry, and I will expand this to say they alive or dead, if you just had that opportunity, who would it be that you'd open for?
Well, if it was somebody dead, it would be Johnny Cash, just because dude's just, I wouldn't say he's the best singer in the world, but that guy is so authentic in his artistry, and I love him. But if we were talking about it alive, then it's going to be Sturgill Simpson. And Sturgill Simpson is really my idol. That guy is just insane vocalist, amazing songwriter, and just a really great human being in general. I've listened to a lot of podcasts he's been on, and I followed his career. And yeah, that guy's just amazing.
Awesome. Excuse me. What is your favorite song to perform?
Oh, and once again, that's going to be a tie between Sturgill Simpson, which it's not his favorite song, and it's not my favorite song of his either. But it's a fun one to perform. It's called "You Can Have the Crown." And Sturgill Simpson actually wrote that song as kind of a joke because he's so he's against all these cookie cutter kind of Nashville type songs. So he thought it'd be funny. He wrote the most cliche style lyrics he could to put in a country song, and he put as many of them as he could into one song. And that's where we got "You Can Have the Crown." And it's a fun song to perform. It always gets some laughs because the lyrics are a little bit comical in how cliche they are. So that one's always a good time. The other one for me was going to be Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. That's one we open most of our shows with because it's a good one. I love the song. It always gets people up and dancing. And we have our own flavor to the song. It's a little bit faster, a little bit harder hitting than the old school Johnny style, but still in keeping it's still his flavor of music, just a bit quicker and a little bit hardcore.
Knowing the rebel Johnny Cash was and was known for being all of his career, I'm quite sure if he was alive and could see your performance of that song and that you put your own flavor on it, he would wholeheartedly approve.
I think you're right. I think that's one of the songs I'm really confident about that we do really well.
So as you progress in your music career now, what's the best advice you've been given?
You know, some of the best advice that I've been given as far as the music career goes is if you're going to do this, you have got to be resilient. Like, you got to be resilient because you're going to get told no way more times than you're going to get told yes. And you're going to get lots and lots of rejections. You're going to get told you suck. And you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to figure out where you suck and fix those skills. And just 2 years in, like I'm on this little mini tour here in Texas, and I'm finding out where some of my weaknesses are that I need to brush up and really focus on. But it is a constant process, and it's one that I don't think is ever going to stop because we're always, striving to take our artistry to the next level. Right. And so my best advice that I've gotten is have a thick skin and be like Teflon, nothing sticks, or like a duck, just let it roll off your back, like water off a duck's back. You got to be able to do that. So.
And I've taken that just a little different wording, but there are a few performers that I've met that I would tell them my best advice for them is don't take it personally. Because if you do, the industry will eat you up.
Oh, I can vouch. I can vouch. It will eat you up quick.
So, what have you taken from your military career that you believe is helping you in your music career?
Gosh, in the Navy, and I'm sure you understand this, the leadership training, and when I say leadership training, I'm not talking about sitting through some management courses. I'm talking hands-on, boots on ground, like in the line of fire training. How do you deal with difficult situations that have the potential for harm, which we don't have in the music industry, but you get to that state of consciousness where your training kicks in and you're able to roll through things. And for me, the music industry is a grind. And you have to have the same mentality that you did if you're at war and or you're in boot camp and you're trying to make it through the next hurdle, get past the next event, is you just have to keep your eyes forward, keep putting one foot forward in front of the other, and just keep busting your ass to get where you need to go. I mean, I think the biggest thing that the military has brought forward is just that drive, the drive to just keep every day just pushing hard, pushing forward. And I know my bandmates and people around me would tell you there's probably nobody that's going to work harder than I am. And that's another piece of advice. Nobody's going to work harder than you will for what you want, and don't expect them to.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I'll benefit. I mean, I credit my military training for is you got to keep your focus where it belongs and ignore the distractions and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
With regards to your music career, what's your biggest fear?
One of my biggest fears was that possibly maybe I was too old, but I think more along my biggest fear is just that I'm not as good as people tell me I am, probably. And that's always it's really a fear of failure, fear of comparison. Comparing yourself to other artists is never going to be a fun thing, and it's not something I recommend. You should always be competing against yourself. And so I think my biggest fear is that I'll be a big flop failure, and all the time that I'm putting in now will be wasted. That's really all. But I'm writing the music for myself, and I love the music that I'm writing. So, I guess at the end of the day, if things don't work out, and I just am able to share the songs with people around me that like them, then I can live with that. But
and if I could, as a music fan, if you're now putting music out that people enjoy and they're telling you that's like it and that you're good, in my way of thinking, you're successful already. Now you want to build that and get a much wider audience and have a little more success. I understand that, but I believe at this point, you've already gone beyond that fear. You're not a failure. You're not going to be.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And last question: where do you see yourself down the road, say 5 or 10 years down the road, with regard to your career?
Gosh, where do I see myself? Well, I really would. That's a great question. Ideally, I would see myself touring and putting out some more albums, and just really continuing to build a community of people who enjoy the messages that I'm putting out in my music and who share a common kind of a future view for how the music industry will look, and also for how our country and our world's going to look. I write a lot of songs that deal with some controversial issues, and I write a lot of songs that are very pro-military and pro, really the blue collar worker and the middle class families, middle America families, and so I would consider myself a success in the next 5 to 10 years if I'm able to really start reaching more of that audience. And not that I'm not able to reach people now, but just getting a much larger audience to be able to listen to my music, and that's what I'm hopeful for. And I'm kind of geeking out down here. I just went down and checked out. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but it's Grunhall, which is right here in New Braunfels, Texas. And like that place, you walk around the walls and you see all these pictures of all these iconic artists that have played there over the years. Because that's like Texas's oldest dance hall, and a very historic place. It's awesome. But there's lots of venues around the states that I would like to play that are like that. And I know that that's going to take some time and a lot of work and effort to get into those, because you have to be at a certain level in order to be considered for playing those venues. So the future is unknown, but I'm hopeful that it's going to be a bright one, and I'm just going to keep busting my ass in the meantime and keep working towards that goal. Because 2 years ago when I picked up a guitar and started singing, I did not know I would be where I'm at today, and so who knows what 5 or 10 years is going to bring.
That's an excellent answer. I guess one last question. Down the road, say maybe a year, and you progressed a little more in your career, would you be willing to sit down with me for another interview?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The one, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was going to make kind of a joke, like you might be working through an agent or something. No, I'll always be communicating directly with you for sure, and all my Clapper family here. For sure.
I appreciate that. The one thing I started with Dan Wesley White when I interviewed him. Said I'm gonna offer the opportunity to you. If you've got an album that you recently released or song, I'm gonna let you have the chance to plug that now.
Okay. The song that we just released is one that was born out of the COVID era, the COVID pandemic era, and it's called "Take Our Freedom Back." And the song is really my perspective and my views on where our government is lacking, and it's also a tribute to all the folks who have served and fought to keep our country free. So look at this song as kind of a juxtaposition between our government that is doing a really piss poor job of managing our country, and versus the people who are doing the right things and protecting us and keeping us free. So that song is called "Take Our Freedom Back." It dropped on Veterans Day, November 11th, onto all streaming platforms. And we're actually doing a radio promotion, which it goes out to radio this Wednesday in a couple days here. And I'm on a tour right now promoting that. That song is one of the songs off the new album, which is called Whiskey Bound, which is going to be released sometime in January. And I don't have the exact date yet, but that's a self-titled album because my band is Jeremy Wayne McKern and Whiskey Bound. So we're titling that album Whiskey Bound. So please go give that song a listen. If you don't like what the government's been doing the last few years, and I don't care what it is, give the song a listen, give it a shot, because I think you might find that there's a lot more in common that we have as a nation than we think we do. Because I don't really consider myself to be extreme right or extreme left. I have a lot of differing views depending on issues, and so yeah, give it a listen. It's my perspective, but I think it's a lot of people's perspective from the response that it's gotten so far.
I've heard that song and I like it a lot. Friends. Friends that are viewing this interview, this has been Jeremy Wayne McKern, who's kind enough to take the time to sit down with me today. If you feel like I didn't ask questions you wanted to hear answered, please comment and let me know what that question is. Like the interview video, and by all means, please subscribe to Big Tank Talk. Jeremy, it's been a pleasure to sit down with you and ask these questions and get to know you a little better, and I sure appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.